Not while you're still in it. Not during the late-night crying sessions with a pint of ice cream and a group chat that's suddenly way too quiet. Not in the confusion. But later, maybe you're in a normal moment. A coffee shop in Chicago, a team meeting in Austin, a family dinner in Ohio. Someone new raises their voice, and your body reacts before your mind does. Your shoulders don't shrink. Your stomach doesn't drop. You don't panic. You don't freeze. You see. And in that split second, you realize something has changed. You're not the same person who tolerated it before. Because surviving toxicity doesn't just leave scars. Sometimes it creates instincts. And psychology is only now beginning to understand why. The hidden shift nobody talks about. For decades, psychology focused on damage, trauma, PTSD, anxiety, depression, all the ways people break. But recently, researchers began asking a different question. Why do some people walk out of toxic relationships not just hurt, but fundamentally different? Not hardened, not bitter,
but clearer, stronger in a quiet way, more precise, like someone who finally learned the difference between chaos and passion. There's a name for this: post-traumatic growth. And it's not about bouncing back. It's about becoming someone new. What toxic relationships actually do to your brain. Let's get real. A toxic relationship isn't just emotional discomfort. Your nervous system treats it like danger. When someone manipulates you, gaslights you, controls you, your brain doesn't interpret that as drama. It interprets it as threat. Chronic exposure to emotional instability spikes cortisol, your stress hormone, to levels comparable to combat environments. Your system shifts into survival mode. Sleep fractures, focus weakens, trust dissolves. Some people develop symptoms nearly identical to PTSD. And this is important. These reactions aren't weakness, they're protection. Your brain is doing its job.
But the real story begins after you leave. Here's where it gets fascinating. Researchers studying trauma survivors noticed something unexpected. A significant number didn't just recover, they transformed. Not back to who they were, but into someone with a new psychological structure. Because when a toxic relationship shatters your assumptions about love, safety, and trust, you're forced into a rare position. You get to rebuild from zero. And sometimes, the new version is stronger than the original. The paradox of growth. Here's the part that feels unfair, but hopeful. The people who grow the most are often the ones who were hurt the deepest, because real psychological change doesn't come from surface wounds. It comes from identity collapse. When your beliefs about relationships break, you're forced to redefine what you allow, what you tolerate, what you need, and growth begins there, not in comfort, but in reconstruction.
This isn't everything happens for a reason. Growth doesn't cancel pain. Both can exist at the same time. Someone can carry trauma and still evolve. Research shows survivors often experience, "I was destroyed," and "this changed me," simultaneously. Two truths, same story. Where growth shows up. Psychologists consistently see transformation in 5 areas. Life hits differently. Small peace matters more than big excitement. Suddenly, a quiet Sunday morning feels more powerful than a wild Friday night. Relationships sharpen. You stop entertaining surface-level connection. No more emotional clearance sales. Inner strength emerges. A quiet confidence appears. If I survived that, I'll survive anything. New possibilities open. Your perspective shifts, so your options expand. Values crystallize. You become precise about what matters and what doesn't get access to your energy anymore. The turning point. Survivors who change don't suddenly become fearless. They become tired, deeply tired. There's a moment when tolerance expires.
Not dramatically, just quietly, and boundaries stop feeling like self-improvement and start feeling like survival. Research highlights one critical factor: processing, not suppressing. There's a difference between intrusive rumination, trauma replaying against your will, and deliberate rumination, consciously making meaning from it. The second one builds growth.
It turns pain into pattern recognition. You survive toxicity. You may notice you spot red flags faster. You choose calm over chaos. You value consistency over intensity. That's not damage. That's calibration. Your nervous system learned the difference between connection and control, love and manipulation. Toxic relationships leave marks. But for some survivors, those marks become maps, not reminders of weakness, but guides showing where they refuse to return. Surviving toxicity doesn't make you unbreakable. It teaches you something more powerful. If you ever break again, you'll know how to rebuild. And sometimes, the repaired places become the strongest parts of you. That's not motivation. That's neuroscience.